Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Cloud Podcast, the spot where leaders come to drive the freelance economy forward. Hey, so today we have Tyler Denk. Tyler is this co-founder and CEO of Beehiiv. If you don't know about Beehiiv, you're living under a rock. They raised their Series A at 12.5 last year. They are probably, if not the fastest growing newsletter SaaS out there. So there's a couple things that we're going to hit on in this episode that is very related, very adjacent to the freelance economy, and also very much just the life of an entrepreneur and what it takes to grow a successful company. So Tyler's background, Google and Morning Brew, mostly Morning Brew. The first thing that really stood out from this is the need for founder market fit. And this has never been more true than in the freelance economy. The best talent platforms out there are typically a founder scaling themselves, meaning they were the best in advertising, they were the best in marketing, they were the best in tech, they were the best in software development, maybe even they were the best at just a couple of different languages, and they've enabled that through their platform. And Tyler is no different in terms of he is the SME in terms of how to grow a newsletter based off his time at Morning Brew. So that was the first thing. The second thing was how to really drive product, because our industry, the freelance economy, if I put it blunt, we suck at tech. And the data shows from our trend tracker. And it's not necessarily our fault because tech is related, but it's not the core driver for what makes a good talent platform. And so we're going to really hit on how to be good at product, more than just buying an off-the-shelf solution or going with a good technology partner, how to really be good at product. And last thing, let me just kind of give you a end to beginning. And that is, when you look at what Tyler and Beehiiv is doing, it's no different than what we as the freelancer economy are doing, specifically enabling individuals and small teams to do just as much, if not more, than what used to require thousands of people. And so in Tyler's case, in the end, he's going to hit on what we can expect for Beehiiv going forward. And my head just exploded in terms of the way that this can enable both freelancers, freelance teams, you name it, enable them and you to scale at ways that just prior weren't possible. So sit back, enjoy, then most importantly, go drive some change. Today's episode is brought to you by Fiverr, the global marketplace filled with skilled freelancers in hundreds of categories for immediate outsourcing. Want more? Check out Fiverr Pro, where teams can work together, you can manage multiple complex projects simultaneously, and you can gain access to the very best freelancers through Fiverr's Pro catalog of top talent. All right, Tyler, you officially have the chillest intro of any podcast guest yet. Usually they're like scrambling and like, do I look good? Does the sound good? So you're ready to roll. I guess the first question for you is going to be, where are you sitting?
Currently standing, actually. I'm a big fan of the standing desk and in Los Angeles. So standing in Los Angeles right now. And
so let me frame this a little bit. So listeners, we sent our newsletter out. What was it, Tyler? 2 weeks ago. And you simply said, hey, use Beehiiv. And I went, that's incredible. Let's talk. And so there's kind of three messages that over the next 30 minutes, I really want our listeners to learn from you, to hear from. The first is going to be workforce related. And so our listeners are very highly the self-employed, the solopreneur, the people that are looking at Substack, Beehiiv, HubSpot, you name it. And they look at HubSpot, they say it's really expensive. They look at you in Substack and say, which one do I go with? So listen, I want you to sell like crazy to them. The second is, I do want to just hear and learn from you on the entrepreneurship side of this. And so arguably one of the fastest growing, most successful companies right now. Tyler, we graduated in the same time, so you were a way more successful entrepreneur. And so I'm going to default to you on every angle of that. And then third is just, how the hell do you build a good business? Because we're sitting at a time right now, based off our data, the freelance economy, and that's most of our listeners, the freelance economy has been growing between 15 and 33% for the past 3 years, but it's not as simple as it can seem from the outside. So there's a lot of founders in pain right now or in neutrality saying, how the hell do I build a company like you? So Tyler, do you want to give a quick intro on yourself a little bit? And let me brag for you just a tiny bit. You came from Google. You also came from Morning Brew. There's the little plug for you. I have a feeling you weren't going to mention those because I think you're too humble sitting in California. But over to you, man. What's the little intro?
I love how much you are appreciating the laid back Southern California vibe right now. I'm usually so stressed and underwater, but Tuesday, Thursday, we have no meetings. So my day has like a bit more ease to it when it's not super structured and underwater with meetings. So maybe that's why I am coming off as so laid back and relaxed today. But yes, background, you kind of hit on it. I went to University of Maryland, self-taught software programmer, built a company in college. That company wasn't successful, learned a lot about it, but ultimately failed, and somehow stumbled my way into Morning Brew from Austin Reef is a friend from my hometown who's one of the co-founders of Morning Brew. And so with no money and a lot of drive, he gave me an opportunity to start building things for them on contract. I ended up just doing a ton of work for them and became like a really incredible experience. They offered a full-time role where I joined as the second employee back in 2017, doing everything from product engineering and growth related initiatives. And fast forward, Morning Brew was like an incredible experience for me. We grew from 100,000 subscribers to 3.5 million subscribers. We got acquired by Business Insider for $75 million in 2020. And I just was able to learn a tremendous amount about one, taking a company from 3 people to about 40 people when I left, from being able to build software that millions of people interact with, being able to scale our audience and just understand like what do the writers need to be able to create amazing newsletter content. What does the growth team need to understand what is working in terms of acquisition? And then what does the sales team need in order to be able to sell advertisement placements to the different brands that we are working with, from Apple to Visa and all of the other large sponsorship partners that we had. So that was a tremendous experience. And then I left to try Google for 10 months. I didn't last very long at Google. I kind of knew that it wasn't like a long-term fit for me, but from like a career trajectory standpoint, it was Morning Brew. I didn't even know what product was. I fell into like a PM type role there. But prior to joining Morning Brew, I didn't understand what product management was. I was self-taught software developer, self-taught product, self-taught growth. So like very gritty and willing to learn and accept what I didn't know, but never had like formal training. And so I did the small startup thing at Morning Brew and saw Google as an opportunity to learn from an established, one of the largest and most successful tech companies in the world. What does product management actually mean? What are the processes to actually be able to manage a team of engineering and growth and everything else? And I actually did extract that in the 10 months that I was there. I feel like I kind of got what I went there for. But I'm definitely a startup, small company type person through and through.
So listen, Tyler, I'm going to give you 3 questions, okay? And you're going to pick whichever one you want. So, and when I say questions, it can be more like direction. So one direction is going to be, let's dig into product. My background was similar to you, self-taught, majored in finance and accounting, realized it was a total swing and a miss. Shouldn't have done that. Probably should have majored in CS or something. But then went to Silicon Valley, kind of, built the self-taught, whatever you want to call it, foundation there, and then went to Microsoft. And I still don't know how to define product, if I'm being honest. But so that's going to be one direction, is let's talk about product. Let's talk about product management. And the other direction, though, or the other 2 directions. And the word I'm going to use is like the why, right? Like, why would you do this? One direction, and I think this is going to be most interesting for you, but one direction is going to be, why Beehiiv at a time when there was Substack? There's been constant contact in HubSpot for a while now. So why do what you're doing, right? Or the direction is going to be, why go this entrepreneurship route over employment? And so you take your pick very selfishly. I mean, and listeners out there, Beehiiv, you just raised last year, you raised 12.5 in Series A. And so you're a success, right? You've hit what 99.9% of people haven't done yet. So you pick though, Tyler. You pick one of those 3.
It's funny that we'll go with the middle one and I think like the why Beehiiv makes the most sense. There's probably the most ammo there to discuss. But it's funny hearing from the outside, like you have raised 12.5 million Series A, like you are a success, because I wake up every day with the same founder anxiety of this could completely fall apart at any moment. And it's not because behind the scenes of the company, like it's a total facade, and behind the scenes, like we're duct taped together. I actually have like a ton of confidence in like our infrastructure, our systems, our people, our processes. But I feel like I don't know what making it really feels like. Even at Morning Brew, when we got acquired, one of the big takeaways I had was, I was there from like not the very beginning, but very close to the beginning. And I knew what wasn't working at 100, what I perceived as 100%. So processes that we had that were still manual, data that was like directionally correct, but not 100% correct, or like things that just weren't like a well-oiled machine. And to me, like what I think, and it kind of hits on the product thing, product, especially in software, is just like a continuous optimization problem of this is good, but could be better. And then it's just kind of stack ranking priorities of what you can tackle next. And maybe it's just that search for like perfection that you kind of never get to. Where at Morning Brew, I was like, there are so many things we are doing a 6 out of 10 that should be a 10 out of 10. And here's a roadmap to get there over the next 12, 18 months. And then we got acquired. And that was such a eye-opening experience for me, because it was like, wait, we're so far from perfect, but there's obviously value in what we've done. But like at the time, I would not have viewed Morning Brew as like a raging success, because at any given moment, I felt like it could have been taken away, or it could have been tired, or people could like get exhausted from the content we are creating. And so it doesn't feel like a success. And then we got bought for 75 million. And it was like, holy shit, I guess like obviously there's value there. But there's like a lot of parallels to that, to like how I feel like, we're doing about $1 million in revenue per month. We just raised 12.5 million in Series A funding last year. For a lot of people and entrepreneurs who are like in the trenches building early days, like that seems like you've made it to the other side, and that is a success. And like, I'm not being like overly modest, and like it is definitely like an accomplishment. I'm happy for where we are, but I still have like day one founder anxiety of like, nothing's guaranteed. We could make 3, 4, 5 mistakes in a row. Users could churn. We could make a strategic decision that's just incredibly incorrect, and bet and move out like resources into like the wrong areas. And just as quickly as we were able to grow, we could just as easily shrink. And so I don't know, maybe that is part of like what has made both Morning Brew and Beehiiv a success, is kind of like that anxiety that we need. Like we can't take our foot off the gas. We constantly need to improve, speak to users, understand what we can be doing better. And maybe if you keep that mentality for long enough, that is like how you continue to grow and eventually can get acquired, IPO, whatever that looks like. But yeah, that's just kind of a long tangent on like hearing you say like, oh, you have made it, like it's been successful. For me, I am so stressed and so insecure about every aspect, which is part of what keeps me going to the extent that I do.
Yeah, the founder anxiety never leaves. And it's funny, I was talking to a class of entrepreneurs at Georgia Tech a couple weeks ago, and I always lead by saying, you know, the Elon Musk quote where it's like, entrepreneurship's like biting glass and staring into the abyss. And like, for some reason you keep doing it. Like, I do feel like I always have to just kind of reset expectations of like, I wouldn't choose this necessarily. Like, this is not something that I wake up going, wow, I feel stable and secure and happy. Like, no. Like at any second you feel like the world's going to come crashing down. But I think this goes in the direction of, let's talk about your crazy belief for the future, because you built Beehiiv for a reason, right? And just like us, like we mess around in the freelance economy for a reason. We believe the future is going to change and we're going to change it. But so for you, what is your crazy belief for where the world is heading in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I can maybe even take a step back and just start of like why I even decided to launch Beehiiv, and then that can kind of transition into like what the vision is and where I think we're going. When the first impetus for building Beehiiv was back, obviously, when I was at Morning Brew, and we were sending roughly emails to 2-3 million people a day. And we would always get dozens to hundreds of responses of people asking about, what is the referral program software that you use? What CMS do you use to create the emails? How are you styling these emails? And like kind of building the processes to scale this newsletter. And these people were either starting newsletters themselves, or working at an organization who sends emails as well, whether they have a newsletter or comms or whatever that looks like. And so what that told me was whatever we were doing became like a model case of being able to grow a newsletter, scale a newsletter, style a newsletter, etc. And there weren't solutions in the market that were kind of serving those needs, which resulted in these people reaching out to us, trying to mimic and imitate what Morning Brew was doing successfully. So that was like the first impetus of we had built something that other people wanted. And the answer was always, we actually weren't using third-party software for the referral program or for the CMS or for styling emails or the dashboards. That was all custom built. So in like the build versus buy spectrum, and this is part of me being naive and part of me thinking I could build everything. And in this case, it worked out mostly in our case, but we built everything in-house. And so that had a ton of advantages for not having to wait on the roadmap of another third-party company. Rather, our writers would say, hey, it'd be really nice if you can customize this in the editor. And I'd say, okay, give me 24 hours and I'll make that happen. And so very tight feedback loops, custom built software and software that other people and our readers were reaching out to inquire about what we were using. So that was the first impetus. And then I'd say the next signal that I kind of received was Substack, which was at the time like a relatively new company, just raised like at a $650 million valuation, their Series B back in 2020, I believe. And at the time, the sentiment with Substack was pretty negative on like the product and capability side of things, at least like on Twitter. A lot of their users were asking for fairly basic things that they weren't providing. And the product has gotten better since. But at the time, it was, here's a company that's valued at $650 million. And I think what I had built with my team of 4 engineers at Morning Brew was both more powerful, more effective, and had the case study behind it that we scaled Morning Brew from 100K to 3.5 million subscribers. So we had like a success story behind it. And so it was kind of those two things. I was like, I think me and my 2 co-founders, who are 2 software engineers that I had hired at Morning Brew, know more about the email newsletter space in terms of what data, what tools, what functions really matter to scale an email newsletter better than 99% of the people in the world. And if I had that conviction and the case study of Morning Brew behind us, I felt that we could basically replicate a lot of what we had built, but do it in a way that anyone can access these tools. So the hundreds of people that were reaching out to us, that were the readers of Morning Brew asking for what we were using, that would be the solution that we could solve for them, is kind of a Morning Brew in a box, similar type software. So that's kind of where we started. And then to answer your question more directly of like, what is the vision? I think, and you mentioned tons of the competitors, there are dozens from MailChimp to ActiveCampaign to Constant Contact to Aweber. Like these are email platforms that have been around for a decade plus. They are built in a different era, different design systems, different capabilities, and kind of serve a different purpose. What we have built is very modern, very easy to use, and it kind of encapsulates like 6 or 7 different features and functionality that historically you would need an engineering team to kind of piece together the referral program with the ad operations, with the audience development, with the website, with the email sending. And we've been able to bring that all under one roof into a single platform. And so it's an ease of use and a functionality that previously just didn't exist at a price point that is far more competitive than all of the legacy players in the space. And that is kind of the value proposition that we're building on.
You know what's funny, Tyler, is like I hadn't heard the inception story, and I'd heard various stories, but I hadn't heard the Morning Brew connection. And actually what I take away is more so we're giving you the power of what worked to grow your newsletter and to grow your content, and then to abstract it to grow your marketing, which then grows your sales, which grows your revenue, right? And so I hadn't heard that before, and that makes total sense. Now I want to throw something at you and see how you react. And that is that if we look at technology in the past, I'd say post Google Workspace, we've seen the individualization of what once required teams and organizations. And so we've seen the power of one, and everyone talks about it, right? Like I think in 2016, someone said there's going to be $1 billion one-person company. All right, well, it's been 9 years. We don't see one yet, right? And so everyone's been talking about this. But part of what you've been able to do is that you've been able to take the process that works and not just said, here's software, but rather here's the right software. And that's what I take away from just hearing the way that you've presented it, which is a much stronger pitch than here's a bunch of features, right? Because there's plenty of software out there. There's plenty of it. Now, one of the things I wonder is when I say that to you, do you go, But then related to that is how do you balance what the users should do versus what they are doing? Because from a founder perspective, that's what I struggle with most, especially when we're talking about industries that aren't yet mature. And so in your case, hey, hey founders, hey agencies, hey people with newsletters, like you should be doing this, but do you want to buy it, right? Like how do you balance that? You could be doing this with you should be doing this. And related, you're enabling the power of one. You're enabling people to do what Morning Brew did as one individual is where I see it as so powerful.
Yeah. So you're spot on that assumption, right? Like it is something that took us at Morning Brew 4 engineers to build over the course of 3.5 years, with sitting in between the sales team, the growth team, and the content team, and like tons of iteration and quick feedback loops. So it really is empowering people to do what did take tons of engineers and tons of integrations and custom code to be able to start a newsletter in 20, 25 minutes, have a website, SEO optimized, completely styled in your own way and however you prefer, with all of the growth tools, audience development, integrations that you could possibly ask for. So the ease of use is like a huge selling point for us. As far as like how do we work with users and expand the market in what they should be doing, if not already, the good news is, although I think everyone should be sending some type of email newsletter, whether it is an individual, whether it's a content creator on TikTok or Instagram, whether it is a business who is selling courses or community that needs to generate leads, or a business that is selling some physical product who, rather than just going for a hard sale all the time, can nurture their audience and their leads by sending content-based emails and eventually converting them because they have a stronger brand affinity for that product. The good news is there's a lot of people that are doing that. And so like the method that we have taken is work with those who are already doing an excellent job and building case studies out of them. Case studies are like a huge, huge lever that we utilize. And what I mean by that is when we were at Morning Brew trying to choose what email vendor that we should use, because we were actually smaller, we've kind of followed the leader in the sense of other email newsletters that were larger than us. And that was Axios and The Skim. And they were both using a software, and we wanted to mimic a lot of what they were doing. And so the easy way to bridge that gap is be like, if we want to do what they're doing and they are using X software, then if we use X software, at a minimum, we know it's possible to do what they are doing. And so it made it a lot easier for us to make a vendor decision because we were kind of following people that were larger companies, more established and further along than we were. And so it kind of short-circuited the decision-making process. And that's what we did at Morning Brew. And that is kind of what a lot of people try to do to mimic Morning Brew. It's use the same software that they are using. The thing is, the software they're using costs several $100,000 per year, plus plenty of different integrations. So it's cost prohibitive. And that leaves them with like, the void of what solution should I pursue? So one, that's kind of where we fit in. But I think the bigger takeaway from that is being able to follow the leader in any given category is extremely useful. And for example, we had a newsletter called Milk Road that started on us with 0 content, 0 emails, 0 brands, no website, nothing. They started in January 2022. They grew extremely quickly to over 250,000 subscribers in 10 months and got acquired for near 8 figures. And the entire time they became like the beacon of like, this is like the best content. This is the best crypto newsletter that exists. And as they grew, they were sending emails to 250,000 people a day. Those 250,000 people either also wanted to imitate the success and build their own newsletter, or worked at a crypto related company and wanted to launch a newsletter with their company that kind of mimicked Milk Road. And if they saw the success of Milk Road, from the referral program to the design to the growth story to the monetization and everything in between, it became really easy to say, let's just use the same software that they're using because they're having a ton of success. And we are starting from scratch as well. We've seen their success story. Let's just mimic that by using the same software. And we have like a pretty large density of crypto-based newsletters solely because of the success of Milk Road. And so you can take that and apply that to any category. So if we have a consumer newsletter or an AI newsletter or a fashion newsletter that is scaling extremely well, looks amazing, has a very engaged audience, and is doing a lot of different things with the features that we offer, it's an opportunity to grow through their audience because people want to imitate what they like and what is being successful. And the answer is a very affordable solution that they can tap into immediately, which is Beehiiv. So it's like a huge growth flywheel that we've built, and kind of answers your question of like, how do we convince people to adopt the software? It's actually, rather than trying to convince them ourselves, it's trying to make a case study of those in their space that are already doing it extremely well and leveraging that case study and success story to grow and expand our user base.
I couldn't agree more. I love that quote of work with those who are already doing it. And I will say, like, the Beehiiv referral experience is second to none and insanely hard to replicate. So I would just massive kudos to that. So the last two things, Tyler, is first, I just want to give you the stage to show off. So like in the spirit of case studies, right? Tell us about some of the things you're most proud of. It could be the individuals on the platform. It could be the internal team, but literally just stage over to you. And then the last question is literally just going to be, what is in store, right? What can we expect from you, from Beehiiv? What can we look forward to? So you take the pick. You can choose whichever one you want first, but you got the stage to show off, and then what's in store.
Yeah, I mean, the Milk Road case study is a huge one for us. I think being able to go from literally zero, to a near 8-figure acquisition is pretty damn impressive when they were utilizing our website, our email builder, our growth tools, our referral program, our survey forms, etc. So like a true homegrown success story, anyone that can go from zero to making millions of dollars in the same year, it took 10 months. I think that is a pretty strong testament to the power of that software that enabled it. Granted, they were very persistent. They sent emails 5 days a week. They did paid acquisition as well. So there was a lot involved there. But the platform, I mean, most of the credit goes to them. They created incredible content. They were able to grow really efficiently. They work with brand advertisers and sold those placements. But we were there every step of the way to facilitate that. And so I think that was also 2 years ago. The platform has come such a far way from those days. So that's a huge success story. But it's not just like they are an anomaly. We have, I think, over a dozen that I'm aware of newsletters that have been acquired on our platform. And so these are people that have moved their newsletter from a different platform, turned on our growth features, improved the style of their newsletter, worked with our advertisers through the ad network, began to monetize more, and then went on to sell their newsletter. A dozen acquisitions that I'm just aware of, and I'm sure plenty happen where they're not tweeting about it and thanking us, that happen kind of behind closed doors. So not that the purpose of the platform is to grow as quickly as possible and then sell it, but the fact that that's even possible on our platform, like newsletters as like an asset class or as a monetization vehicle to help build your business, is really interesting to me. So as far as like what I'm most proud about, I'd say that that's pretty high up there. At the end of the day, I feel like you are only really successful in this space is if you are user obsessed and really put aside your ego and your roadmap to build whatever the users are asking for. And I think being able to continuously listen to users, have them dictate our roadmap and continue to deliver value add features and functionality that they're asking for really is our competitive advantage. It is one of the hardest things I think as a founder and as a product person is balancing, here's the roadmap that I think is the most important. This is what I think we need to build to serve our current users, to attract new users, to prevent churn, expand our market, etc. And then there is every step of the way, you are going to get dozens of points of feedback from your existing users on what they want to see you build. And also from users who are on other platforms that say, if you were to build XYZ that my current platform offers, I will move over tomorrow. And so it's kind of balancing those three buckets. It's what you believe is the best thing to build, what your current users are telling you that they want you to build, and then what is preventing you from growing and acquiring other users from other platforms due to a lack of functionality. And something in those three is like how you balance and how we currently build our roadmap. So a bit of a tangent, but that's kind of like what I think we do extremely well, and kind of touches on your product management question from like at the very beginning. One of the options that we didn't choose, kind of circling back, I think that is kind of how I view product, and prioritizing different things.
You nailed it, and I do want to bring up though that there is this. You had the experience at Morning Brew, like, and even though you have those, the three principle approach that you just brought up, the learnings that you had from seeing what success looks like, it really does bridge into every user story written into that code base, right? Like there is that aspect of it. And so the ability, and I think part of what I saw in looking at Beehiiv versus Substack versus the others is that the HubSpot, man, Constant Contact, remember that name? Like this is not like CMS, like CRM systems. That it's not new. But what you really did, or really took ahead, and from my understanding, Substack was good for like journalists, right? And then you took it and said, listen, we need scale. Like we need you to be able to build that $1 billion one person company. And here's the way to do it. And I will bring up the referral engine, which I know it's a small piece, but it is so powerful in what you've built. And I just want to call it, I think those years of cutting your teeth at Morning Brew really, 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 really inspired everything that I see, at least. So last question, Tyler, what can we expect, right? There's so many things. There's so many things you can do, man. You are literally a walking angel syndicate. Just to bring up, you literally can create HoneyBook app. Like there's so many things that you can do. What can we expect?
Yeah. And then real quick to hit, before I address that question, to hit on kind of the Morning Brew experience and how critical that is to the success. I consider myself fairly entrepreneurial. I've tried a bunch of different startups. I've tried building a crypto startup in like 2018, kind of as like a side project. I think the biggest and even like the story back in college of me trying to start a company with two others that was like a co-founder matchmaking freelance type platform. What I've realized in both of those is like I was not a subject matter expert whatsoever in either of those, whether it was crypto or the freelance co-founder matchmaking. Like I think I identified a problem, but I don't know if I was suited or had the experience to actually solve and serve that user better than anyone else. And so that I think has been like, they call it like founder market fit. But the fact that I have that experience from Morning Brew, and like, even if I didn't have the current user feedback or like the two other buckets that I described, which is user feedback and feedback from users who are not migrating over due to a lack of functionality on our end, I at least have that first strong bucket of like, what is our roadmap if I had no input? And that is directly derived from the experience at Morning Brew. And we're still building out like what we mapped out in 2020, me and my two co-founders to build. Like we have not even built out all of what we had mapped out then, which is kind of like just executing on what we had learned from a previous experience. So I do think that founder market fit and being able to serve and build, like it is so hard to build a business, but if you're also trying to learn the industry, like what I was trying to do with crypto while building like a cold storage wallet, like I had no business, no relationships, no experience doing that. I just thought that I could build a business there without that experience, and that didn't work out. Which is like a huge competitive advantage, I would say. And then now that I've avoided your question 3 times, I can answer that kind of what we're actually looking forward to. The thing that excites me a lot is the ad network. We have an ad network now. Basically, to take a step back, what Substack did as an innovator at the time in like 2018, 2019 was be able to combine website, newsletter, and premium subscriptions all under one roof. And so you could publish to both web and email and charge your readers kind of like a Patreon, OnlyFans, whatever, like directly charging your audience a subscription to get premium content. And so we also do that. We don't take a 10% cut like Substack does, or a lot of the other competitors take a subscription fee. We don't take a subscription fee, but that is just one of many ways to monetize, which is directly via subscription with your audience. Morning Brew was entirely ad-based. So was Axios. So was The Hustle. So was a lot of these other very successful newsletters. But being ad-based is very difficult. It requires understanding exactly who your audience is, being able to sell a narrative, a story, and the value of your audience to different brand advertisers, being able to do the copywriting for those brand advertisers, doing the testing and back and forth hand-holding of here's what the copy looks like, here's when it'll go live, can you test that this works, that your links are correct? There's the reporting, there's the invoicing, there's the relationship management. There's a lot to build a successful ad business for media. And that Morning Brew is one of our largest teams. What we are doing at Beehiiv is we have now over 1 billion email sends per month. So we are sending tons of email. We are collecting tons of first-party data to the extent that we know our users' audiences better than they know their audiences. And because we are sending so many impressions, we are working with brands like HubSpot, like Betterment, like Monday.com, like Better Health, and basically matching newsletters and niche audiences to advertisers. So for advertisers, it's incredible because HubSpot might be have a ton of success advertising in email, but after the top 10, 15 newsletters that like kind of fit their target market, they get small very quickly, or it's very hard for them to find a long tail of thousands of newsletters of people who would likely convert to become a HubSpot user. And so it doesn't make sense for their growth and marketing team to advertise the long tail in email, but we can serve that. And vice versa, as a user in a newsletter, it's very, like I just kind of painted the picture of how difficult it is to build an ad business, but we can give you inbound opportunities from Monday.com and HubSpot, where you just accept the opportunity, drop it into your newsletter in one click, and get paid hundreds or thousands of dollars through these advertisements without needing a sales team. And so that is kind of what excites me the most is I think we can help thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of publishers, businesses, solopreneurs monetize via advertisements with grade A brands. And that hasn't previously existed before in email as a space. And then obviously on the brand side, I think brands are well aware of the effectiveness of email. That's why they've continued to invest in email and newsletters as a channel. There just hasn't been an opportunity to scale that. And I think we can provide a solution there. So that's one of the things I'm very excited about.
Let me put a freelance spin on that, just so our listeners, because I think it's a very, very, very clear use case in what you said. And I'm going to give a little bit of the problem before that, or one of the problems. So within the freelance community, the freelancers, but also the people hiring freelancers, there's no way to get around that it's a feast or famine, and it can be really, really hard. And one of the problems is that there's a singular revenue source, which is having an end client, and you get stuck between having to either charge more or work more hours. And so there has been the other side of the coin, which is, okay, how do I start to productize? But part of what's that is done is that's created an industry of people that are coaches, but not good freelancers. And so there has been this chasm of like, hey, that person that seems like the thought leader out there, they actually suck as a freelancer, but they're better at branding themselves. And part of what you're telling me, dude, this is the whole promise of technology, right? This is why I got into tech, is you can enable the artist to stay an artist by all the business admin and sales and marketing related things, taking that off their plate. And so the really good operations freelancer, the really good fractional CMO can start to productize in a way that they don't have to sell out and become a coach or become a thought leader, and instead can stay doing really good client work 80% of the time, but then starting to share the standard principles, the standard practices, but not in a way that's come by my course, in a way that's, hey, I'm already doing this and I'm just sharing it with you. And Beehiiv's enabled me to not have to put in so much work to be able to sell this to you. So I just want to make sure I put that spin on it, Tyler. And I know we're coming up on time for you. So probably most important question, where can our listeners find you? Is there any last comments? Because I can't thank you enough for your time.
No, that was a great encapsulation of what I think the value prop is, right? Like when a writer has scaled an audience to 30, 40,000 subscribers that writes about sports, they scaled that audience because they are amazing about writing about sports or politics or fashion. They didn't scale that audience because they are amazing at doing custom code integrations or serving or sourcing ad deals and monetizing and building their funnels and their lead gen and everything. And so that is really the value prop of the software, is we kind of make that part extremely easy. So you can focus on creating content, driving leads, sourcing deals, whatever you want to do with email as a channel. And we can handle growth, audience development, website, cybersecurity, monetization, etc. That was a great encapsulation. Where you can find me, I'm probably most active on Twitter. So Denk_tweets is the Twitter handle. Maybe you can drop that in the description.
We will.
And then I also have a personal newsletter that I launched just 3 months ago, very, very meta of me. It is all about building in public while I am building the newsletter on the platform that I am building. So it's called Big Desk Energy. You can find it at mail.bigdeskenergy.com, but it is a totally transparent view of how we are building the team, how we are building a remote company and culture, how we are scaling the company, what's working, what's not. So gotta pump the newsletter when I can.
I love it. I love it. Tyler, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for hopping on. And listeners, damn, that was a masterclass for all y'all. Tyler, thank you so much for hopping on, bud.
Cool. I'm glad I responded to your email. Thanks for replying.